Okay, we're continuing on with workers' compensation arguments, the other argument section, which is miscellaneous arguments. And next, significant reserve adjustments. Sometimes an insurance company makes a change internally. Perhaps they feel that they've been under-reserving as an approach on all of their claims historically, or over-reserving, and suddenly they make a change and they require all of their adjusters to make an increase or a decrease in the reserves for the same claims. Nothing has changed for those claims, except internally the insurance company feels that they have to make some changes. They've identified some claims trends and they need to make changes. So we see sometimes that clients will receive their loss runs and send them on to the broker, but it's important that the client review those loss runs carefully, because sometimes the client can identify something that is going on that's unusual that the broker won't necessarily see right away. So if you see significant reserve adjustments, suddenly a number of your claims have jumped in value and there's no obvious reason. There's no real development on the claim. There's no significant change in the injury or the treatment, and suddenly the values are higher. That's an important thing to point out to the broker, because the broker can dig into that and sometimes find that in fact that's simply an internal insurance company adjustment that has nothing to do with you. And so underwriters that are now looking to quote on the account ought to know that the reserve adjustments aren't reflective of anything particular to your business. Secondly, new hire screening. I've said before that up to 40% of claims in California can be attributed to employees who are within the first 6 months of a new job. And so the extent to which you are trying to screen out bad apples is important. So outline in great detail all of the steps you take with regard to new hire screening. There are some employers work in an industry where there's kind of a small fraternity of employees that work in the industry between employers, and the employers talk to each other and they talk about the bad apples and they know who they are. And so if that's the case, it's very important to make that clear to underwriters that you have a procedure for identifying the good workers, and you're careful to hire only the good workers. Or if you take steps in your new hire screening to perhaps do background checks of various types, sometimes employers do credit checks, sometimes they do criminal background checks. Outline what those steps are that you take and make sure the brokers are aware of those things, because that can help build the arguments with the underwriter and drive the premium down. We talked about background checks, talked about failed carrier or TPA. It's not an infrequent occurrence in the insurance world that if an insurance company decides that they're no longer going to write in California, or if they have a third-party administrator that handles the claims for that insurance company and suddenly they change third-party administrators, that sometimes there can suddenly be a significant adverse impact on the claims simply because of the disruption and the fact that many of the adjusters are no longer looking at those claims or handling them. And in the transition, claims can get out of control. If the insurance company claims department suddenly isn't paying attention to the claims like they used to, suddenly claims can skyrocket, and they can do so on a mass level. So sometimes this is apparent in the loss runs, where suddenly you have the same insurance company for a few years and suddenly the claims spike for no reason whatsoever. You have the same frequency, same number of claims per year, but suddenly dramatically there's a big increase in your claims values. And if that takes place, talk to your broker about that. Your broker can help you identify if in fact that's simply reflective of a dysfunctional insurance company claims department or third-party administrator that's managing the claims. Again, this is very common. There's an insurance company that left California a few years ago that had a very good reputation in terms of claims handling, and suddenly when they decided they were no longer going to write coverage in California, the outstanding claims on the clients that they were rolling off of their book before their coverage had expired, those claims were a disaster. And so this can happen. And again, we really encourage clients to keep a close eye on their loss runs when they receive them, and not simply pass them on to the broker. History of carrier reserve adjustments. Some insurance companies are known for reserving high at the outset, and they have a track record of having claims come in lower than originally reserved. Other insurance companies tend to reserve low and they come in higher. So you can talk to your broker about that if you suspect that the insurance company tends to reserve everything high, and is this something particular to this insurance company? And if it is, that's a good argument the broker can make to underwriters that, hey, this insurance company is known for reserving high at the outset, but then the claims come in lower later on. And the last thing we'll talk about in this section is drug testing. Underwriters, as I've said before, love to see improvement in your risk. So if you've implemented drug testing procedures in the last 4 or 5 years, you should convey that to the broker. So, for example, if you're doing post-offer, pre-hire drug testing, if you've suddenly decided, you know, we're going to test everyone who ever has an accident, that's going to be our policy, post-accident drug testing for all injured workers. Any procedure that you have in place or that you've improved over the past few years with regard to drug testing, you should convey to the broker.